Hi everyone, welcome to the Art of the Possible series. I'm Nihali Niyogi. I'm a principal cloud solution architect at Microsoft. Today's topic is using your data securely with Azure AI Studio Playground. We will start with the architecture overview and then we'll jump for portal experience, demos, validations, and some troubleshooting tips. Today, I have Gabe Costa, who is a senior technical advisor in the Azure AI and IoT team. Welcome, Gabe.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you for having me. Excited to talk about this on your data feature. It really enables you to run models on your own enterprise data without the need to train and fine-tune them. So yeah, excited to talk about it.
Thank you and welcome, Gabe, again. So let's start with Azure documentation, and all of the links for the documentation that I'm going to show you are below. And I'll call out a few important sections of the document. So this is the main topic for today. And we're going to discuss this table, which shows you all the different components that needs to be configured. And we'll start with network access, and then we will go into role-based access control, Entra ID, as we progress through the session. And then the second topic we have is how to configure network isolation in AI Studio, right? So this is the architecture diagram, our diagram from our documentation. Two different types of isolation mode, and we're going to focus on the one that says allow only approved outbound. There is very little difference between allow internet outbound and approved outbound, but today's focus is this one, the allowed approved outbound, and we'll talk about the differences as well coming up in the different scenarios. And these are the differences between approved outbound and allow internet outbound. Gabe, anything you would like to add about the network isolation modes here?
Um, just to cover a little bit about differences. When we talk about disabled over there, that just means we don't use a managed virtual network for your compute resources, while the other two modes, allow internet outbound as well as allow only approved outbound, those are managed virtual networks that your computes will be using. Today, we'll be talking about specifically only approved outbound, which blocks outbound traffic to the internet unless you specify otherwise. So, yeah.
Thanks, Gabe. And the last document that I want to share is this is a new feature that recently got released. So this is a great blog in our tech community from our product team. So be sure to check that out. With that, let me jump back into the architecture diagram here. So what you see on my screen is a tool that I'm using called Draw.io. And throughout the course of this session, you'll see me navigating these layers as we progress through different flows. And the tab of interest is AI Studio Networking. I've done other videos on ML Studio, but today's topic is focused on AI Studio. Okay, and we start with what I call a hybrid cloud architecture. In other words, the customer already has some sort of on-prem presence. They're connected to Azure, which is the blue box, using some sort of private connectivity. Here I've displayed ExpressRoute, could be site-to-site VPN. And then they also have this green box is showing an existing storage account, AI search, some sort of PaaS services. Okay, and this is displayed as an external user, the one in red, and these two are internal users. So we'll be looking at it from different personas. So these are this is our starting point. Okay, so let's go. And again, I have shown this mode that Gabe talked about, private with approved outbound. This is the network isolation mode that we are going to be using for secure data. That's the option, more enterprise ready option from a network isolation perspective. So with that, the first thing we will do is we will deploy the AI Studio. When you deploy the AI Studio, or I would call it AI Hub, that's the right terminology. Uh, it behind the scene, it deploys all of these AI PaaS services, default PaaS services. So you could see AI service, storage, Key Vault, ACR, container registry, monitoring insight, and then AI hub. So this is the first thing that happens when we deploy it. And we'll jump back into the portal to actually create it. But any thoughts, Gabe, on just the overall architecture, the vision that we're going to walk our viewers through?
Uh, no, as you mentioned, Ali, I think these are essentially just the default uh, resources that will come with your hub, and we'll go over it a little bit more as we um, go through the demo. I think you covered everything.
Thanks, Gabe. Yeah, so this is the default and this is existing customers' PaaS services. So let's jump back into the portal and then we'll deploy the AI Hub. Here we are under Azure AI Studio, and we'll say create new AI Hub resource. I have already created a resource group, so we'll drop everything in there. And let's pick the region as ECS2, and then we'll call it AI Studio Managed VNET. So here we'll walk you through a few PaaS services that we showed you before that get created. This is the AI service. Again, it's a new service that we will create, and then we'll go to the next tab. It asks you for storage account, key vault, app insight. We'll give it a new name, and we'll call it app insight. And we'll call it 88. Okay. And notice that these are all new PaaS services that we are creating. And when you create a container registry, if you want to use private endpoint, be sure to pick the premium SKU. Okay, and that's ACR, and we'll call it 88. And I'm going to pause here because this step is important. Any thoughts here, Gabe? This new versus existing, how that all works?
Yeah, on the new versus existing, when you, if we go to the next tab real quick,
Mm-hmm.
there we would be able to set up the networking. This is only applies to the hub itself. So when you select private with approved outbound, for example, that would disable the public network access flag, the PNA flag of the hub to disabled, but the associated resources would not follow suit. So if you want to bring in any, if you want to have those resources already with public access disabled, you would have to uh, bring existing resources. Another thing as well, if we return to that storage um, tab, notice that the app insights and container registry, those are not mandatory. You do not have to have those for your hub to work, but if you want to store um, images, you'd need a container registry, or if you want to do any sort of monitoring, you'd need those app insights. So, but they will not be required for the full functionality of um, the AI hub.
Great points. Yeah, I recently had a customer, Gabe, where, they had a regulatory need that their storage account had to be private. So
Hmm.
they were programmatically creating it through ARM templates. They already had an existing account, and then they will use it from the portal. Of course, you can use the drop down, but um, yeah, so that's a use case if you cannot absolutely have a public facing storage account. Great points. Thanks, Gabe. So here we would pick this approved outbound. This is the enterprise ready setting. Again, if you notice the difference, there's very little difference between private with internet outbound and private with approved outbound. This one, you would require outbound rules if you select this. And again, remember, outbound is from the perspective of the compute. It says compute can access allowed resources only. This is the key point over here. So with that, I'm going to show you. I'm going to pause here at this screen, and I'm going to jump back into the Draw.io screen to show you exactly what's going to happen here. So here, once we provision this AI Studio Hub in the private with approved outbound mode, what will happen is this user will no longer be able to access these from the public internet. So in our portal experience, we also give you the option to create a private endpoint. So essentially, you project the private endpoint into a customer's VNet in a subnet. I've created a private endpoint subnet. And then this user can access, essentially, these are the flows that this user can access the AI Studio Hub. So we haven't yet created this private endpoint in the portal, but this is the flow of interest. Anything, Gabe, you want to add over here?
Um, no, those are great points, Nahali. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. Yeah, so we're ready to project this private endpoint in the portal. So it's jumping back into the portal. So notice how it says workspace inbound. So inbound is from the perspective of those two green users that we have created. And we'll pick this and we'll call this AI Studio Cust VNet. So it's projected in the customer VNet private endpoint. And we'll pick the customer VNet, and I already have a private endpoint subnet. Now this is a very important configuration step. When we talk about private endpoint, there is always the element of DNS, private DNS zones. So behind the scenes, we will create two private DNS zones, and these are the two private DNS zones. I'll show this to you in the Draw.io as well. But this step creates private DNS zones for you behind the scenes. And we'll just hit OK over here. So jumping back to the portal, just to Draw.io, just for completeness, is Gabe, you want to talk a little bit more about this key step? We see a lot of, confusion about this part. So maybe it is a good time to talk about private DNS zones and yes, how it works.
Yeah, of course. So when you create a private endpoint for access from your virtual networks, for the Azure Recursive Resolver, which is Azure's DNS, to be able to properly resolve it to a private, those FQDNs to a private IP address, we need private DNS zones. For the case of AI Hub, there are two private DNS zones created. One is privatelink.api.azureml.ms, and the other is privatelink.notebooks.azure.net. The first zone covering most of the hub access, access to endpoints, access to uh, compute instances, uh, while the other one would be the notebooks functionality of um, the hub. When we are talking about accessing from on-prem, there is a few ways you can set that up. The most common way we see is we have an on-prem DNS and we set up conditional forwarders to a custom DNS in Azure for those particular zones. And then same thing on the Azure custom DNS. We set up a global forward to the ARR, which is that 168.63 address. If the specific virtual network that your custom DNS in Azure is in is linked to the private DNS zone, we will then be able to resolve those FQDNs to its private IP. Without that link, that will not work. This also applies not only to AI Hub, this is across those PaaS services that you see on the right side of your screen. So when we go and start creating those private endpoints for AI service, storage account, key vault, those will also require private DNS zones. Obviously, they would be different. For example, for storage, we would have a blob.core.windows.net private DNS zone, and so forth. But it is crucial that these are properly set up so that when you're accessing from within that network, you can resolve the fully qualified domains to its private IP. Nally, any other points you would like to add?
No, great points. Just wanted to add to what Gabe said here. Is that here in this diagram we're showing, a IaaS-based DNS server, but of course in Azure we also have private DNS resolver, which from a flow perspective, DNS resolution perspective works as very similar to IaaS-based service. But I've done a deep dive video on private DNS resolvers too, so be sure to check that out. And the other thing is that the recursive DNS resolver that Gabe mentioned is this 168.63 IP. Just wanted to kind of call that out. Yeah, so jumping back to the screen where we were showing the configuration or deployment of AI Hub. Uh, This is the step that we just did. We created a private endpoint, and notice this required outbound rules. These get anything under bar sys automatically gets created, and just be sure to check how the screen is done. Well, first is inbound and this one is outbound. So Gabe, you want to talk a little bit about how these default outbound rules are structured and some important points here?
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to the outbound access, we want to emphasize that this is the outbound of compute resources created in the AI Studio Hub. So managed online endpoints, compute instances, those would be using this managed virtual network. Um, you can see here that there are some required outbound rules. This is the case because one, we are using allow only approved outbound, meaning all access to public is blocked. So we have to add specific rules for the computes to function. So you'll see here all of these have a beginning with the SYS, so sys. Notice also that they are all inactive. We will not have them active until you create those compute resources because we don't want to charge you for something that you're not using. Um, Notice as well that there are different destination types. So the first one is a private endpoint to the key vault so that you can fetch any secrets from the key vault. And the second one is a service tag if for fetching logs and sending out logs to Azure Monitor. Notice that um, this is a pattern you see across. What you can also do is add any additional rules you may want for access. So for example, if you want to allow traffic to pypy.org, let's say you want to download some package from a Python repository, you can go and add an FQDN rule to pypy.org. We will go over it a little bit more later on, but just keeping it simple, outbound is outbound of the compute, inbound is user access to the hub and its resources. Any other points you'd like to add?
No, I think you covered it well. Thanks, Gabe. Right. So then we'll go to encryption. Um, we're going to go with the defaults for all of the rest of the tabs. Identity. Maybe Gabe, you could talk real quick about encryption and identity. Um, i- i- any other points you want to make about these settings?
Um, uh, with I with encryption, we don't have to worry too much about it. We'll be using Microsoft managed keys. Um, yeah, we won't be using custom managed keys right now, so that's all fine. With identity, since we're using Microsoft MMK, which is Microsoft Managed Keys, the identity type of the workspace would be a system assigned identity. So we won't be able to change that. For storage account access, right now we'll keep it as credential based, and as we go through the video, when we set up our connections in the hub, we will modify those to use Entra ID, which is the more secure way, and yeah, which is the more secure way of handling the data access portion of the hub. But those, for now, for encryption and identity, we can keep them as default.
Excellent. Thanks, Gabe. And then tags, we'll skip the tags for now. Review create. We'll go ahead and hit create here. And while it's creating, kind of jumping back in the Drio and architecture, what we just did is we just kicked off the AI Hub creation. So at the end, we would have all of these default PaaS and the AI Studio Hub and this private endpoint projected. And we'll go through the validations as well. So while it's provisioning, let's see what we will do next. So let me hide all the flows here. And so the next thing that will happen is we'll talk about different private endpoints. Gabe mentioned this earlier, but what will happen is we will project all of these PaaS services in the customers VNet, and we will disable the PNA flag on these PaaS services. Anything you want to add for the customer VNet private endpoints, Gabe?
Uh, I think you covered it on, Ali. Great points.
Thank you. And there was one layer of DNS that before we saw that there were two other DNS zones. Yeah, these are the two DNS zones, Gabe. This are associated with the AI service, right? The
Correct.
the cognitive.
Right. So AI services deploys several of the AI resources in one. Things like Translator as well as OpenAI. That's why you see the two private NES zones there. The cognitive services.azure.com would cover most of the traditional um, AI resources that have existed, and then the OpenAI one would cover the OpenAI portion of the um, private endpoint access. So yeah, those those two would
Yeah,
be the main ones for AI
the main
services.
ones. Yeah, so just to emphasize what Gabe said, these two and these two are the main ones, and they correspond to this AI service that's displayed over here, and this AI hub that's displayed over here. And while we are on the topic of the customer's VNet, we also can project these customers' PaaS services into the same, it's the same VNet, or the subnet within that VNet. Okay, so these are all the private endpoints that are projected in the customer VNet. Notice the pink flows and the pink lines are showing the ones that are projected here. And now we are ready to light up anything else, Gabe, here before we light up the compute layer and the managed VNet private endpoints?
I think with the customer paths portion, where we see the AI search and storage, um, we will be connecting to those using connections in the AI hub. We'll be going over it. The one on the top left.
Oh,
Uh, yes, those. So
I see.
yes, those will
Okay.
be using connections in the hub to access. Additionally, when you want to access them from the compute, we would have to create um, additional outbound roles for your managed VNet, right? So let's say this, I have some indexes that I want to query. I would have to create a private endpoint outbound role to the AI search resources to make sure that my computes can access it and fetch the appropriate data. We'll be going over it a little bit more later in the video as well as we go through this end-to-end demo.
Great points. Thanks, Gabe. So before we go into the compute layer, let's jump back in the portal and see our deployment. Great. Looks like our deployment is complete. So let's go to the resource. And here, let's run some validation. So what I'll do is I'll go into this resource group, and we're going to walk through all of these resources that got provisioned. Gabe, you want to kind of lead this one? I think this is the perfect one to go
Yeah,
over
let's
everything. Yeah.
let's start with our hub, right? So Azure AI Hub. Yeah, let's start with the main one, what we will be
Great.
deploying and using the most. So
Yes.
if you can navigate to it, let's go over it a little bit.
Yes, I think that makes sense. So let me open this in a new tab. So
Perfect.
that was the hub that we just created. Yeah, so let's do this, Gabe, just for completeness. Yeah, so this is the hub that we just kicked off, right? So
hmm
this is the type. Okay, so and then we can click here as well.
Perfect. And we see here on the overview page the all description of the resource group and everything else that comes with it. You'll see as well that we have all of those associated resources that we created uh, earlier today, such as Key Vault, the storage, container registry, application insights. Those are all mentioned here. Um, Great. So for us right now, if we were to try to launch this AI Studio, we should be unable to access it because we are not within that network, right?
We expect it to fail. Yep.
Yep, this is expected because we have the public network access disabled for this hub. So great, we can close this one out and let's go to the networking tab. Here we will see that public network access is disabled, which will contrast with the other resources, which will all have public access enabled, and we'll go through the process of disabling it. On the private endpoint connections, you'll see that we already have our customer VNet P created, so that when we use our virtual machine to access this, it will be within the network and we should have no issues from there. There is a third tab as well, which is the managed VNet portion. Please notice that the disabled and allow internet outbound are grayed out. When you create this, if you set it to disabled, you can move to allow internet outbound or allow only approved outbound. But once you create that managed network, you cannot go back. Anything you'd like to add so far, Nahali?
No, I think great point. So essentially, you can go in this direction. So if you had it disabled, you can switch it to this, and then you can go to this level. But once you have this, you can go this direction, right?
Yes, yes. And if you click on the required outbound rules again, we should still see them as inactive since we have not created any compute resources or anything that would utilize this managed network yet. Once we kick that off, the managed virtual network creation will kick off, and then we should see those turn to active. A quick point as well. The main difference between allow internet outbound and allow only approved outbound is that with allow internet outbound, as the name suggests, all traffic to the internet is allowed. And when you deploy with allow only approved outbound, we create a firewall to restrict the traffic for you, right? So with allow only approved outbound, you might have some additional charges because of that firewall, but that is how you would restrict um, the traffic to the internet. Any other points you'd like to add, Natalie?
No, I think you've covered it well. Thank you, Gabe. So then going
Great.
back to um, these resources, or did we have anything more here?
Nope, I think this is good for now. We can go back to all of the resources and let's go to AI services this time.
Okay, AI service right here.
So as we mentioned, this, as you can see at the bottom, there are several endpoints for your AI services. OpenAI, speech, translator, languages, those are all created within that AI services. Um, Now, if we go to the networking tab here, we'll see that the public network access is enabled, right? So anyone on the internet that read user on Trad.io would be able to access this from a network perspective. What we want to do to fully secure this is set this to disabled. Okay, so we'll be going through that now. We can disable it. And it's important as well that we allow those trusted services to access it. Otherwise, the hub will not be able to properly function with this AI service. So we will disable, save, and then go to the private endpoint connections. Here we will be doing the same thing, which is creating a private endpoint um, to this AI services so that the users within the customer VNet can access this. Any other
Yes.
points
No,
you'd like to
great
add?
points. So essentially, we're going to kind of, for completeness, essentially, we're going to create now this private endpoint, Gabe, right, in the AI service projected
Yep.
in the customers VNet. Yeah. So let's go ahead and this one's done. So we can create a private endpoint. We can call this AI service cust VNet PEP. And we'll just pick the right resource.
Good.
Customer VNet. And DNS.
This
And
would
this
be the
is
private
where,
DNS
yeah,
zones.
so I want to put it in the right resource group here. Yeah, so again, like we showed in the draw.io, just wanted to make sure this cognitive services is fully seen. Like we explained in the draw.io, these are the two DNS zones, and we're ready to project it. Anything else, Gabe, or ready to create?
No, great points.
Create. Okay, good. So let's see. While that's creating, we were still, let me open the resource group in another tab so we could actually finish all the resources that got provisioned. So far we did a deep dive on the hub and the AI service.
Great. Let's go to the storage account now.
Okay, so I'll open it in a new tab.
Awesome. So the storage account will be storing our data, right? Any data that you want to secure uh, will be stored here. You can always bring other storage accounts as well to so you can provide data from other storage accounts to the hub, but this one is the default one that generally your data will be going to. Um, if you click on the data storage portion on the left blade, you'll see there are containers and file shares. Here, the container right now, we don't have any created because we haven't had to utilize it. Once you create a project, we will also create a few default blob stores here for your data to be stored. And if we go to the file shares as well, same thing here. Right now, we have not created anything, but once you create the project, we will create a file share as well, which is mounted to your compute instance when you create that. Okay. So for now, those would be empty, but that is not a problem. If we go to the networking uh, portion under secure networking, same thing as the AI services, it is enabled, right? So what we want to do here is first select the enable from selected virtual network and IP addresses. So here we have to do this because when you click disabled for the storage account, the exceptions for trusted services do not show up. So we have to make sure to first select enable from selected virtual networks and IPs, and then add the exception here for trusted services. Um, then we can fully disable it if you'd like, or keep it as enable from selected IPs, whatever your preference is. Notice that also with storage, there is a functionality for more granular access to these trusted services, for these trusted services, where you can add a specific resource to access the storage account. So if you wanted to, you can go select the resource type as Microsoft Machine Learning Services, which is the underlying RP for this, for AI Studio Hub, and then add the AI Studio Hub name here as well. And this would also work as a way of allowing those trusted services. Okay, for now, we'll just keep it as the allow. Uh, we'll click on the exception for allow trusted services. We won't add the specific instances. So it's selected. We can click on disabled and save here. Any other points you'd like to add here, Natalie?
Yeah, just clarification, Gabe. So you mentioned that when we, so first time you do have to do this and then go back and hit disabled, or when you do disabled, it will, the other setting, the setting will stick.
It will stick. So we just want to make sure that when we are securing the storage, that that setting is enabled. So we
I see.
check on the enable from selected virtual network and IP addresses first, and then
Just
see,
double
because
check. Some,
correct.
I see, I see. Got it.
Um, so yeah, once that is good, you can disable it. It will stick with it, even though it doesn't show on that disabled. It is still uh, that trusted services is still enabled.
Is okay, got you. Okay, so let's go ahead and save and then we can talk about the other. Okay.
Awesome. And for private endpoint connections, we will also be wanting to create. Here we will have to create two private endpoints. Notice that the ones for AI services and hub have two private DNS zones in one private endpoint. Storage, you have to create separate private endpoints for each different sub-resource type of your private endpoint. So in this case, since we have to create one for the blob endpoint and one for the file endpoint, we'll have to create two of these private endpoints. Once that managed VNet is provisioned as well, you'll see there will be two additional private endpoints created on the storage account. Those syspes will get created there, but we can show you that once we get there. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so I think maybe we name them as blob and file separately, right? Because they then
Yes.
we can distinguish them. Okay, so good point. So we'll do one blob P PEP and then so customer and then so here you could pick blob. Okay, got you.
Correct.
Yeah,
Perfect.
anything else? All set?
No, that's perfect. We'll just have to now do the same for um, the file private endpoint. Uh,
Awesome.
awesome.
So while that's creating, jumping back into this resource group, so we just covered storage account, right?
Let's go back now to the Key Vault, our other main resource for this hub. Yes, perfect. So here, um, I'm sure most of you that have used Azure are familiar with Key Vaults. But yeah, let's go over it a little bit. If we go to the networking portion of the Key Vault, we will have the same three main settings, which are allow public access, allow from specific virtual networks, and disabled. We will once again want to set it to disable public access, and we want to make sure that the allow trusted services is set. Okay. Um, when we create private endpoints, we should only need one in this scenario. So let's go through it. Perfect. This should be the bottom one. Mhm. And we want to use that. Perfect. And the vault sub resource type. Mhm. that one private DNS zone created for the key vault as well. And this should be good. Everything else, we'll keep it as is. We'll be going over the identity setup later in the video when we talk about the on your data portion. Great. The last thing we'll secure will be the container registry here. So this will be used for storing any images you may want to use, any private image you may want to use. So let's go to networking again. And once again, disable the public access. Keep that trusted services enabled once again. And then on the private access, we will create another private endpoint for this registry. Once again, you see another private DNS zone created. Since these are newly created private DNS zones, the virtual network links will be automatically added to them for the associated VNET that your private endpoint is getting created in. If you are associating them with existing private DNS zones, let's say you have a more robust setup and you're associated with existing networks because you have several services or in other resources utilizing it, you might have to go and check the virtual network links for that private DNS zone and make sure that it is correctly linked so that the virtual network of the private endpoint or the VM that you're using to access can indeed resolve those FQDNs to its private IP.
Great point. Thanks, Gabe. Yeah, and so let's finish this. So essentially, Gabe, at this point, we have all of these PaaS services, secured private endpoints projected in the customer's VNet, and this outside user can no longer access this and this, right?
That is correct.
Cool. Jumping back, do we want to do any other validations or any other?
Let's just see any other resources. If we scroll down on this resource group, let's see if we missed anything. We have just those private DNS zones. Yeah, nothing else. Notice that we didn't go over the app insights portion. That won't be, we won't be needing to secure this for now, so that's okay. We'll just use the main resources that are associated with the hub for actual functionality rather than logging. So the way this is will be good. So yeah, I think we covered all of these, so that's good.
We
And I think
refresh it. Sorry, go ahead.
no problem. Yeah, we refresh it now. I think we see all of those additional private endpoints created
Yeah.
and
Yes.
those NICs, so that's good.
And the
I think
DNS zones as well, all of
mhm.
these new ones.
Let's go over like the private link.api.azureml.ms private DNS zone. We can just show it a little bit. Um, yeah, so over here, let's go to record sets first. Notice that these were all automatically added um, to it. You see that first one, that inference.ec2s, which is used for managed online endpoints to access. You have the models.ec2s if you have any model as a service deployments over there. You also have your regular workspace.ec2s and workspace.ec2s.cert, which are the main entry points for your hub. So when you associate a private endpoint to a private DNS zones, all these record sets are going to be added automatically for you, which make it a lot simpler and easy to manage all of these A records. Um, let's also go up. Sorry, any other points you'd like to add here, Holly?
Yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit about this asterisk because first time I did it, I didn't realize that it was using the same record.
So when you deploy a managed online endpoint, um, we will append the endpoint name to that. Instead of that asterisk, we're going to append that endpoint name to this A record. So so all of the endpoints that get created within the hub will resolve to that same private IP. They'll just have different FQDNs. So the asterisk, what it's doing is simply saying, hey, anything that has that um, that suffix, we want to resolve to the 3.6 IP address. So if I create, let's say I have now 3 online endpoints on the same resource, as long as I have this asterisk 8 record created, we should be able to access all of these records because um, the CNAME for the manager line endpoint will have endpoint name dot C1965, which is the hub GUID dot inference dot h2s. So
Yeah, so same IP, different FQDNs for inferencing.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Gabe.
Um, yep, that's good. If we go also to the virtual network links, just so
Yes.
we can do a little bit, notice that this was automatically added as well to that customer VNet since we created it since we newly created
Mhm.
this private DNS zone. If, let's say now I wanted to create another hub and associate it with the same private DNS zone, but it is in a different virtual network, you would need to also come here and add that additional virtual network link so that um, we can properly resolve this um, those FQDNs. Any other
Excellent.
points?
Great points. No, I think you've got it covered, Gabe. Jumping back maybe in the resource group to see if we missed anything. I think I have lost. Yeah, there.
Awesome. No, I think this one. Yeah, let's refresh it. There it is. Nice.
Yeah,
Yep.
looks like all of our private endpoints are looking healthy. I think we're ready to launch the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that it failed the first time um, because we were doing it as a public user. So let's do that with the private connection. So this fails. So if I jump back on the VM, this should work. So here we are in the VM. So coming kind of jumping back here, we're going to access it from this VM. So as we mentioned before, we should be able to now launch it, and it's failing for this user. Okay, so coming back here. So
Beautiful.
there we have it. Yep, perfect. So
So
here,
now we are ready to provision the compute instance using the Azure AI Studio. So here, and notice this error. This is a known issue as of this recording, and it wouldn't stop us from doing anything. So let's just go ahead and create the compute instance. And I will call this managed compute. We'll select the minimal category here. And this is the idle shutdown time. I'll just make it a couple of hours for now. And this is an important screen. So if you want to enable SSH access, you can enable it here. And if you want to disable public IP, you could do that. But notice this virtual network over here. This shows that this compute will be provisioned with a managed virtual network. Anything, Gabe, you want to highlight on this particular screen?
Um, Note as well that that first flag, user assignment, if you are an admin creating this and you'll not be using the computes, but you'll have data scientists using these computes, make sure you assign it to a user. These compute instances are always designated to one user only, so please make sure you do that.
Great point. Okay, so we go next. And we'll skip the tags for now. And we will provision, we'll go ahead and hit create over here.
So
So
before we hit create here, I wanted to go to the workspace and talk a little bit about the managed network so we can get a better understanding of what that is doing.
yeah, good point.
So notice here on our AI hub, there are three settings, like we mentioned previously in the video: disable, allow internet outbound, and allow approved outbound. The setting we chose here is allow only approved outbound, which means that any traffic that is trying to reach the internet will be denied. Okay, once you, if you want to access anything on the internet, you will be able to add FQDNs on this managed virtual network that will use a firewall on the back end to route and allow that traffic. Okay, so if you were to choose allow internet outbound, that restriction would not be in place, meaning if I wanted to reach Anaconda repository for some Python packages, you'd be able to do so without the requirement of adding additional rules here. Note as well that all of the required outbound rules right now are set to inactive. That is because when you create the workspace, or the hub rather, we will not automatically provision that managed virtual network because we don't want those costs already accruing. So how do we trigger this? There is a command you can use to manually provision it, or when you kick off a compute creation, that will also kick off the managed virtual network creation. Anything you'd like to add here, Nahali?
Yeah, possibly we should add the link to that manual creation as well, how to create the managed virtual network.
Sounds good. We'll add that on the there as well.
No, great point. So let's go ahead and hit create now, and then we'll look at it after as well. Ready?
Yep, ready.
Oh.
Okay.
So while the compute is provisioning, let's look at some of the first few things that we would do in the Azure AI Studio. Should we start with connections?
Yeah, let's start with those connections. Here, notice that we have two connections. They are automatically created with your AI services connection. One is to the OpenAI endpoint, and one is just to the Cog services endpoint, which will cover all the AI services. Since we selected credential-based, all of these are currently set with API keys. Later in the video, once we go over on your data, we'll be modifying these, but as of now, these two were automatically created for you. Okay.
Thanks, Gabe. So should we kick off, start a new project and the deployment next?
Yeah, let's do that. And to give a little bit of understanding on how these projects are accessed, when you create a new project on the back end, we are creating an additional workspace that has its own unique GUID. So when you see these calls, when you try to access the project, it will go to its own GUID. But in terms of DNS resolution, if you are already using those conditional forwarders like we did here, you won't see any issues accessing it because that FQDN has a CNAME that points to the hub FQDN. So all of the additional projects created here would all point to the same private IP as the hub. And as you
That's a
can
good
see, looks
point.
like
So if I go to private DNS zones here, would that be under?
we won't create any additional uh, um, we won't create any additional A records here since the only A record that will matter is the one for the hub. So under the private link.api.azureml.ms, we should see under record sets, we should see that first one. Sorry, not the first one. Yes, that one. Under
Yeah.
EastUS, that one pointing to the .4. That is the hub GUID with the workspace region. Right. So for each project, a new one will be created, but all of them point to this FQDN with the workspace GUID. So they would still resolve to the 3.4 IP. So if you are doing manual host resolution, make sure that the project FQDNs are also pointing to the 3.4 IP. Otherwise, you won't have access to it.
Got it. Good point. So now we have a project created. So the next step would be to create a deployment. Preference on the model we pick, or should we pick GPT-4?
Yeah, that should be fine. For 3.5 Turbo, those should both be able to have chat functionality.
We can open in Playground. And at this point, we should be able to load prompt samples, right? And chat in the Playground. So this response is based on the context that we set over here, right? Your marketing assistant, writing assistant.
Indeed.
Perfect. So at this point, we still haven't yet done the add your data piece yet. This is just chatting with the playground by default, right?
Hmm?
So let's go ahead and check if our compute is provisioned real quick. It's still creating. Oh, and one more point that I thought we should make over here, Gabe, is that um, here it is connecting to the API service using private endpoint, correct? So
That
in
is
other
correct.
words, so let's do a quick resolution. So if when we used this prompt on the VM itself, if we go on the command line, and if we look up, let's go back in the DNS zone, or we could just look at it from Azure AI
OpenAI.
Studio, and we could just get the.
Yep.
If we look up this one here, it should resolve to the private. So 3.9 indeed. And so in this playground, when it's talking to this GPT-4 deployment, it is indeed using the private endpoint.
Great point, Nahali.
So now the compute is still creating. So let's go ahead and review the requirements for on your data next. Is that what we want to do, or do we want to look at?
Let's
Yeah.
also, before we jump into on your data, do you have the drawings pulled up for
Yes.
the outbound connections?
Yep. Yeah. So what we just did was we just provisioned this compute managed VNet and the compute instance over here. And of course, when it's provisioned, we will have all of these private endpoints in active state. Is that what you wanted to show, or were you looking at the
Yes, that
outbound?
is the outbound portion of which is the managed virtual network, right? So when you're creating this compute, all of the managed VNet is what secures it. So all outbound traffic from the compute to the internet to your own resources will be secured in that managed VNet. And that's what the outbound rules in the Workspace Hub are for. So you notice how there were several um, required rules. Most of those are for our PEs to its own resources. So we'll create a private endpoint to the hub. We'll create a private endpoint to AI services. We'll create a private endpoint to the storage account. That way, when you're executing a job on the compute, let's say you have to get files from your storage account, um, with those private endpoints set up, the network connection would allow you to fetch that data.
Yeah, and we would also project these to um, customer PaaS private endpoints in the managed VNet as well, right?
Yep. With any additional resources you want to bring and connect to, yes, we would want to create those additional private endpoints.
Yes, so previously we created private endpoints for all of the AI default PaaS. We haven't yet created private endpoints for AI search and storage. So we need to project them first in the customer's VNet and then also in the managed VNet.
Yep. Great points.
Yeah. So while we are on the outbound section, I just wanted to call out that, like Gabe mentioned, outbound is from the perspective of compute. So when it comes to going to the internet, there is a firewall that gets provisioned every time you create an FQDN based rules. However, today, strictly from a routing perspective, we don't allow outbound from compute instance to using the private connectivity. In other words, if you have an Artifactory on the other side across the express route or a VPN connected branch or a site, you don't have this orange flow, this red flow noting that that connection is not supported. And the workaround for that, which is an upcoming feature, is that you can provision an app gateway and drop the Artifactory as the backend to the app gateway, and then project that app gateway as a private endpoint and connect to the connect from compute using that. So that's the workaround. The green flow showing the connectivity to the private endpoint for app gateway. Anything you want to add there?
No, that's excellent. And right now, that flow is not um, it's not currently supported, but we should have this in public preview soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's outbound, again, outbound from the perspective of the compute. And of course, there is no inbound to any of the either the AI PaaS, AI Studio, and we're just about going to disable this inbound as well, inbound to the customer's PaaS. So yeah, so let's go ahead and jump back into the portal and see. Yeah, great. So it looks like this compute is running. Any validations we want to run over here? Maybe we jump back
Let's
here.
let's check on the studio. Let's go and refresh this page. We can go back to overview or just refresh. And now we see under required roles, all of those are now active. Notice as well, if you go, for example, to the private endpoints page of the AI Hub, you'll see that if you refresh this page, there's now a system B created. This is the private endpoint that is being used by the managed VNet to access this resource. If we go to any of the associated resources as well, such as storage, AI services, you'll see that same, not the same, but that same
Mm-hmm.
naming format with sysp for those resources as well.
Yeah, so maybe we can take a quick look at the storage.
Yeah.
This is the storage account in question, and then we go to networking. Oops. Networking, private endpoint. Yeah, these are the blob and the store and the file. That's why we have two, right?
Yep, that is correct. So both of these are now created. So if we were to execute any jobs on the compute, it would have access to all of these resources as well. Anything
Awesome.
else you'd like to add here, Natalie?
No, I think we got the compute running. Looks like it's in a healthy state. Actually, I'll start this here. So now we are ready to use the add your data feature. Before we do that, let's take a quick look at the documentation. So I'm going to pull up the documentation that we have over here. And there is a lot of detail in here, but I want to call out a few items here, which is the assigned roles and resources, roles to resources and users. Gabe, do you want to talk about this table? I know it's very critical.
So for the secure on your data, we can only use Entra ID, and we cannot use API keys, which is why earlier on the connections, we mentioned that we were going to have to change that. So this is only supported with Entra ID. So that is why there are so many roles required for utilizing this feature. Um, we will go over each of them as we go through it, but basically when we are using Playground with your data securely, API keys are not going to be supported. So we have to set up the managed identity for the search and OpenAI resources, and those will need to have sufficient permissions to communicate with each other, essentially to upload data, to read data, things of that nature. Same thing on the storage account, right? When you are talking about data that is being stored on a storage account, we'll want to make sure that both the OAI and search resources, those managed identities, have sufficient permissions to upload and read data from the storage account. So that is why we have a table of extensive uh, roles that are needed for this feature. If you scroll down as well, you'll see another table for the specific user requirements. So when it comes to a, a user in the hub and in project, if the user needs to access that specific data, they will also need permissions to uh, the data and to obviously the OEI resource as well as those search indexes. Otherwise, you won't be able to use this feature. Anything to add here, Nali?
No, I think you covered it all. I was just thinking in terms of how this document is structured. It kind of goes over first the key vault changes, then um,
First, when we talk about this document, we first secure everything, right? We want to ensure that one user access to search AI services storage from a network perspective is correctly set up.
mhm.
Once that is done, we then go into the Entra ID portion, which would talk more about the authorization and authentication to
So this
those
table
resources.
essentially. So this is the network bits that we just finished, and we are now diving into these.
Right. That is correct. I think for our demo, we'll have to do a few additional network configurations, given that we will be bringing outside resources. So we will be going over that as well before going into the
A quick look
intro portion.
first. So here I am in the search on the networking tab for the search. And you can see that public access is disabled and there are no private endpoints here. And similarly, I am in the storage account. Again, this is the customer's PaaS shown in the diagram. And right now, there is no um, public access is enabled only from certain IPs, and there is no private endpoint. So let's go ahead and create those private endpoints.
One quick thing to note as well on the search resource is under the firewall and virtual networks, we see that trusted services is enabled. This will be needed for both search, key vault, storage, for this feature to function.
Yep. Okay. So again, jumping back into the diagram, the first thing we will do is we will create two private endpoints for these customers' PaaS. Again, the data that we're going to be using today is stored in the storage account. So we will project, the first thing we'll do is we'll project these two private endpoints. So let's go ahead and jump on to the storage account, private endpoint, create private endpoint, and we'll call this and we will put this in the customer's VNet and the private endpoint subnet, and we will put this in an existing, we already have a private DNS zone for blob.core.windows.net, so we'll just create it over there. And similarly, for AI search, while that one's provisioning, let's go ahead and do the same for search. This is a new private DNS zone. Okay. And let's just double check. Yeah, our storage private endpoint. We can go to our storage account, demo storage, networking, private endpoints. Okay, so that private endpoint's created. And then we'll just wait for this to be created.
Since this is a new private DNS zone as well, let's validate that the search FQDN is resolving privately once it is created.
Sure. You mean here, right here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And already see the search getting created and the record set. So we can get it all ready to be queried. So this should start to resolve as a private IP once that one's finished. Okay, so it looks like this is the one that's finished, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so if we resolve this now, we will get a private IP for this. Yep, sure
Perfect.
enough. Yep, we get the, which is this. Yep, so we have the two private endpoints in the customer's VNet now.
Now, what we want to do is we want to navigate back to the hub so we can finish setting it up. One thing to note real quick here is that the Azure Data feature only works in projects, so that's why we created the project as well, so that when we bring your own data, we will be able to use it in the project. Now, what we want to do, now that we have both the storage and search set up, is let's create a connection. Note that the additional storage we brought is because where we wanted to store our data, you can still use the default storage account of this hub to store that data if you'd prefer. But this is just part of our demo. It does not need to be yours as well. You can use those default resources. So if we can navigate to connections here on the left side.
And we need to be in this project. So I
In the
just want to.
hub. So right now, since we're setting up the connections, we're going to be in the hub. But when it comes to using the chatting with the playground with your data, we will need to go to the project. Same thing when we talk about creating the indexes. For this, we'll have to go to the project. But for now, we can use, we'll have to use the hub to set up these connections, okay?
Yep.
Okay, so one thing here, notice that now there are two new connections. These were created once we created the project. The project is referencing the default storage account of the hub. Okay, so when you create a project, we create a connection to a container, to containers within that storage account. So each additional project, you'll see more connections created here as well. Note again that these are set up with SASCII. We will have to update these to Entra later on. But for now, let's just work on our connections to search and the other storage account we just created.
Okay.
So let's create a new connection to Azure AI Search. It should be
This one. This is the one that's private.
perfect. Let's add before we add, let's change the authentication to Microsoft Entra and add the connection. Perfect. Okay. See here, we added a connection to it. Now we want to also add the connection to that storage account. Now to create the storage connection, we will have to navigate to the project. For that, let's go to the project we created, manage project, and we're going to navigate to the data tab here. Now we're going to create a new data. And since we don't have that connection, we want to add it, right? Those are the default connections to the default storage account. So since we just created this storage and we want to associate it with it, let's create a new connection to it.
Oh, and we also want to mention that in the demo storage account, we have created a folder called design. And in the design folder, we've uploaded two PDFs. These two PDFs are based on this. If you want to upload those in your environment, it's based off of this Azure Samples repo, and it's under, I believe it's under data. And these are the two PDFs that I have used. And we will query, when we do the on your data test, we will query it against the content that's in this PDF, right?
Yep, great point, Nahali.
Yeah, so coming back, yep, over here, we want to, that's why we selected the design folder. And then we want to call this, we want to use credential based.
We want to use Entra again for this.
Entra ID over here. And then we should call this, and then demo storage connection. Right.
That is fine. It's just a warning that since it's in a different
Region.
yeah.
And so now we
have that connection created. We can go ahead and select the folder we want to use or the specific.
Yeah, so we can, I think I also have a folder. Let me just, yeah, I have a folder with the two files, so we can just select the folder here. And we want to name this, right? Insurance data. Is that what this data name is? Is this data name for the storage account?
That's the, yeah, it's the specific data name. So insurance data works great.
Yeah, so we got our two insurance, yeah.
Good. Now, if we go back to the hub, we should see that connection there as well. Let's just validate that.
Demo storage connection, yep.
Yep, perfect. Those are now created. And now what we want to make sure of is that the managed VNet has access to the search and to that storage account. So let's go back to our AI Studio Hub. On the portal, on the Azure portal. And we want to go to the workspace manage outbound access and refresh that page. Notice that here, the search private endpoint was created when we created that connection. We will have to now create a private endpoint for the blob storage as well. So let's
that
walk through
didn't
that.
get created automatically, Gabe?
That did not. I suspect this is because of the creation process for the data connections. It still uses the ML workspace data stores, so we don't have a mechanism for automatically creating this private endpoint for you.
Got it. So we create that manually here. So
if you notice your connection not get created automatically, most likely AML first party app doesn't have sufficient permissions to create that for you. So you'll have to manually create that connection as well to the search resource.
so we'll just create, we'll use the drop down for private endpoint here.
And I think that storage account is in a different RG. Storage accounts, perfect. And yes, we want to use blob, so that's good. And we can save.
I was going to just do this real quick here in the storage account, just the before and an after. that we currently only have one private endpoint in the customer VNet, and then once we finish this, it will get projected in the managed VNet as well.
Perfect. So we'll hit save to add the role here. And so if you want to add multiple roles at the same time, you can still continue to add them. Once you want to save those modifications, you click on that save button at the top of the page.
Yeah, I just did. So we'll just wait for it's saving. So we'll just refresh this. It created the managed VNet private endpoint, and I think we were in this page. Sorry.
Can you go back to the hub? It's saving still. Okay. Yeah. Let's wait a little bit.
Yeah, and while we wait,
Well,
just to, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, so what we just did was we just projected these two private endpoints. The search one was done using the connection, and the storage one, we did it using the outbound rule, and then we also projected these two private endpoints.
Perfect. While this is saving, let's go to the search resource as well. And let's see if the system P, or not system P, we named that P ourselves. So if we go to the networking tab, under private endpoints, we should see that connection created. Perfect.
Yeah. And then we'll just wait for this this one's already created. This one's still, yeah, it's saved and active.
Okay, it's saved. It's active. Can we go to the storage account and refresh and check if it is in an approved status?
Yeah,
so
it was
if we
pending
refresh.
before. Yeah, approved. Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, now we have connection to search from the user VNet as well as from the manage VNet. So that is good. That's good. We should be done setting up the network portion for now. Now, what we want to go over.
Truly starting the Entra and role-based portion.
Yes, yes. Now we should begin this. So what we want to do is let's go back to our hub and let's set up all of our connections to use Entra. Right now, what we did was we created two new connections, one to that additional storage account and one to the search resource. Those already had, and we selected the Entra ID as the authentication type. Now what we want to do, since we'll be accessing the default storage as well as the AI services in OpenAI, we need to modify those resources to use Entra as well. Okay, so let's do those two. Yes, those are the default storages. We want to update the authentication type there, but also the OpenAI and AI services at the top. We will also want to use set those up to use Entra.
And is that all part of the documentation here, Gabe?
Yes.
So this is the one that we are doing right now, right?
Mm-hmm. That is correct. We want to make sure that all those connections are modified to use Entra ID.
Jumping back here. So the way to change this is we just select this and edit. Yep. And change the authentication type to Entra. Go back to the connected resources. So we click here and edit. And these two.
Mm. Okay. That error is referring to data store,
Okay.
not the actual storage. So the reference to data store is throwing issues. Okay. Can we check if the other one also has this problem?
This one.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Access managed
scope.
project only. It's scoped to the project, which is intended. So okay, these will not work. Let's go to the project and attempt to update these. But it doesn't show. There's should be, because I don't want to go to the ML workspace to update this.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be connections here. Okay, well, let's do some troubleshooting.
Perfect.
Let's
Perfect
go to
opportunity.
let's go to the project or the hub. Can you click on the edit or of any of them, of any of these blobs? And then if you press F12,
Open DevTools.
yep, and you can then navigate to the network tab. Perfect. Now let's update the authentication again from credential to Entra. And then hit save. Let's see the request. You see that 400 requests? What are we making a call to? Yeah, so it's looking for the data store within this workspace, which correctly will not
Let me
exist.
pause.
Yeah, if you click on that request, yeah, the call is being made to the, not to the project, but to the workspace. So, or to the hub. So the hub won't have that exist. We should, okay. Yeah, we'll have to edit this on the project. Let me think. Okay, can you close out of that, Natalie,
Yeah,
real
so
quick?
if let's look up this one you're saying would not exist.
Well, it does exist, but the data store, so the reference to this connection exists within the project, not the hub.
Hub, I see.
So it's erroring out saying, hey, this doesn't exist because it's looking for it in the wrong place. So there's a way to modify it, but I want to try to avoid that. Okay, that's good. You can close that out. Can you click on the actual project? Yeah, I want to see. Yeah, click on the blue link of the blob storage.
Oh, you want to in the connections? Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So it just mentions yeah, it's access based on the project. Where did the project? Because on the project connections, I swear. Yeah, can you go to all projects here? Maybe. Yeah, let's go to the specific project. There used to be a page here for those connections.
Hmm.
Completions. Can you go to settings? Ah, that's what it is. Under settings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yes, yes. And then you have the connected resources, right?
Yeah.
View
Those
all.
connect.
Yeah. It
Yep.
used to be in a different place. Yes. Good call.
And so let's edit this, right? It's set to project only. And are we on the project?
Yep, project settings connected.
Okay,
yeah.
let's save. Yeah, there you go.
Yep, there, perfect.
So we should be able to do the same on the other.
Yep,
Since this is set to project only and the data stores are going to be set on that specific project and on the hub, that's why when we try to edit it in the hub, we get that data store not found error. Can probably do some improved error message there, but yeah. So basically, we want to navigate to settings under the project to be able to update it to Entra ID for
yeah,
for the
settings,
data stores.
And then view all gives you a nicer, complete view. Yeah.
Okay. Let's put a pause right.
So great. So coming back to the documentation, we finished the networking components. We just configured all the connections to use the Entra ID. So now, should we jump into this AI services resource?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go set up our identities for both AI services and search to ensure that they can communicate with each other. Yeah, that's a good next step, Nahali.
So, is it? This is the AI service in question?
Correct. So under yeah, if you open security and resource management, identity, and notice that by default those AI services are going to have the identity disabled, so we will have to enable it. Feel free to hit save here. Okay, that will be.
And then we do the same thing for
search. So for search, what we want to do is that search service should already have a managed identity, but the allowed access to it will most likely be set only to API. So on the keys section of search, we will have to update it to both. It looks like this resource had already been set to both, so that's good. But by default, when you
from my
create a search,
lab.
yeah, when you create these, they would generally come with API keys by default. So we want to make sure that this access control is updated to both here. Okay. All of these steps are covered in the documentation as well, so that's good.
That's this step on.
Last thing, let's check the key vaults. Those should be the identities. Now let's check key vaults to ensure that it also has trusted services. I think we forgot to do that on our networking session. So let's just make sure that that's done. Perfect. Yep, allow trusted services. Yeah, good. Okay, so we are good. If we were to kick off a run right now, things will fail. That's because we haven't added any permissions yet to those managed identities. Holly, would you like to show that?
Sure. So you're talking about these roles and permissions.
Yeah. Right? So everything is going to be using Entra ID right now. So if we were to try and authenticate to anything, it would fail. We should be able to demo that on our index creation.
Sure, let's do that. So we go back into the studio project and chat playground, right?
Let's go to the indexes first. And you can see here that on the chat itself, we already have several error messages regarding our permissions being insufficient, which is
I
good.
missed that. I missed it.
At the top.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you can see that we are like the error messages here already are telling us that we don't have those permissions, but let's also try to create an index just to see what happens. So our data source would be that blob storage where the documents are.
No, that's the connection that we created.
And let's go next. And we want to select the search service that we have a connection to. We can use vector indexing, that's fine. Yep. And we can create. As you can see, we can't actually create it. If you click on more details as well, we can see what it's talking about. But basically, your user identity doesn't have enough permissions to perform these operations. So let's begin by adding our user. So Nahali here will be adding her object ID, granting her object ID permissions onto the storage, search, and the AI services resource. Okay.
Yeah. And
To
so,
map this, it would be on the, not this table, but the one below.
right.
Yeah.
So developer's identity. So in this case, I'm the developer in this case. My identity.
Right. So to begin, let's start with the top. Let's look at the AI search permissions. And there are two permissions required. One is contributor, so you can list those keys. The other would be index data contributor, so you can actually create an index. So when you use on your data, you can properly index the data so you can get a response from chat.
So I'll go to search and this, and then I'll first check my access, right?
Mhm.
And I don't have.
Good. So looks like you already have permissions on, you already have contributor and you have index data contributor. So you are good on the search service. Now let's check the other permissions.
So going back, this one.
Yep. So let's go to the AI services resource. That's where our model is.
AI services.
As you can see, we don't really have um, many permissions on this AI services resource. So let's add them.
And so we have to add 3, right? Cognitive service, contributor, and
Correct.
okay.
So
Right.
you can use OpenAI 2. You can use OpenAI contributor and contributor. You can also add the cognitive service users, but the contributor role should be sufficient.
So this one. So
The cognitive services OpenAI contributor.
okay,
Yes,
let me grab
those
this
data
one.
actions. We want to add that one and then regular contributor.
Okay. So here, so we do role assignment. And we have to do one at a time here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
If you have
that's,
multiple developers, you can add them at the same time, but for roles, each role has to be added one at a time.
so yeah, I'll
Let's add
just,
the contributor one, and let's not add the cognitive service user for now.
sure. Sure.
Perfect. Now, let's go to the storage account. Right now, the permission you would need is only to the blob storage, but if you were to use prompt flow, you would also need file permissions. Yeah. Or if you were to navigate and use like the VS Code connection to a compute instance, you would also need that file permission since we mount a file share to the compute instance. Um, we can go ahead and add both since
Yeah,
in the
we will
future,
be doing prompt flow in the future.
yeah. Good. So we have blob data contributors, so we need to add contrib and
This one,
file, yeah, and the one above as well. So there are 3 permissions on storage.
oh, we don't have the contributor, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Perfect.
So looks good.
It looks
Just
good.
kind of revisiting quite a few permissions. I remember the first time I did it, I missed a few and I ran into a couple issues. So it looks good, right?
Yeah, that looks good. That last one, if you were to deploy things to web app, you will need contributor on the resource group um, where you want to deploy the web app as well. So just for awareness, but for now we are not using this, so we should be good to go.
Okay. So coming back to indexes, should we try to do this again?
Yeah, let's cancel this out and refresh. Roles can take up to 10 minutes to propagate as well. So if we see failure again, immediately do not worry. Just give it a little bit of time. But we can go ahead and try it still.
So this virtual machine over here, Gabe,
Um, yes.
that
So
one's the
here we can
compute.
select yes. So if we can select from all options, for example.
What's that? Oh,
Yeah, we can select what we want to use if we have a preference on higher performance. Not right now, we can auto select
but we
and it
already
will use
have
a
the
serve.
compute.
Yeah, there is a compute already. I believe this with auto select, it will select it will create a serverless run for this. So yeah,
I
instead of
see.
using the compute instance, it should use a serverless run, but we can confirm right after this as well.
Yeah, serverless compute.
Yep.
So the compute that we provisioned earlier, when does that get used?
So if we want to use prompt flow or we want to use tools for like developing code, you would use that compute instance. Yeah, you can technically select it for any job as well that you want to do. So the purposes for our demo, they were for creating the managed VNet so that when we create that compute, we could show the before and after with the managed VNet, and then later we'll go a little bit into the uh, to some through some validations for that managed virtual network as well. So the point of the compute would be to run jobs. In this case, since we have serverless, we can use serverless to run it. It would be in that same managed VNet we just created with that compute.
Got it. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and create. So that's a good point, Gabe, that the reason, so it's going to be positioned from a placement perspective, it's in the same place as where the compute instance is.
Correct, yeah. So it will have the same network restrictions as the compute instance.
Got it. Yep. So
So,
now did it, yeah, looks like it's running. So it worked.
oh, awesome.
So coming back, we kicked off this index and we paused the recording and it failed. So this is the screen we are at now. So it looks like it failed, Gabe.
Yes, this was expected. What I want to show here is if we click on view logs, we should be able to get some additional information on the cause of the failure. If you scroll further down, we should see a few messages that have error instead of just the info. All the way down should work, and we can go back up. Yeah, here we're seeing all those failures, but okay, great. Yep, so here we see a few calls during runtime. It looks like the request is timing out. So we're like, okay, what could be happening here? Most likely it's a connection issue. What we want to confirm, if we scroll back up, we should see a specific connection. Oh, I saw it. There was a connection timeout. If you want to control F connection, that should work as well. Otherwise, we can go from the bottom back up. Just do CONN and search. There are a lot of them. It's fine. And go from the, press the up arrow here so we can go from the bottom of the page. Yeah, just click on it a bunch of times so we are at the bottom of the. Great. Okay, yeah, you see here? We are seeing that this embedding call is timing out. Right.
Oh, the embedding call right here.
And these would be calls to OpenAI or the AI services. So if we go back to the workspace here on the Azure portal, we'll notice that there is a rule missing. So if we go to Workspace Manage Outbound Access, we don't have any outbound rules created for the AI services, which is why this connection is failing. The call is coming from the compute, which is in the managed VNet, but because AI services is private and we don't have any private endpoints from the managed VNet to it, these calls are failing. So what we want to do is add a user-defined outbound rule here with the destination of that AI services.
Got it. Good catch. So would that also be here in the logs somewhere? This exact AI service API call. So it should be making a call to this, right?
It should be making a call to that. The embedding calls, I don't believe explicitly throws that in the error.
At the
But if
top
you
we
want to
could.
search,
Let's kind of search for research for AI Studio manage.
Mhm. Project connections, you see the connection? Yeah, AI Studio managed, blah, 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 AOAI.
This one. Yeah, let me just see if I can grab that.
That's the name of the connection on the studio.
Okay.
So if you map that, you can
Okay,
map
this
that
connection.
to it.
Right, yes.
Mhm.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so it gives us a clue as to which connection is failing. Okay, perfect. So you're saying we add that in the outbound rule. Yeah, good catch. Good tip on troubleshooting as well. So just to confirm my understanding, Gabe, it is
Mhm.
this private endpoint, the AI service private endpoint in the managed VNET that is missing. So it's
Correct.
so going back in the portal. And the way we do that is by adding an outbound rule. And we can call it AI service managed VNet. Private endpoint, and this is managed VNet, and the rest looks good, right? And also to kind
Those
of
look good.
paint the picture before and after for the AI service side as well, the networking will not have a private endpoint yet. And as soon as we do this, it will, right?
Yep.
Save and save, yeah. Okay, catch.
Awesome. It would take a few. Save this, then we can kick off that job again.
So I'll pause the recording here while it's saving. So looks like it finished saving. So let's go back and double check. Here under the AI service private endpoint, we refresh. We have an approved endpoint. So it looks good now, right?
Looks great.
Let's kick off the index again. So is there a way to kick off this one again, or should we do a new one?
It's best to just kick off a new one.
If we can delete this or no?
Nope. We don't have archive functionality in the studio for these indexes.
Let's do a new one then. Looks good.
Looks great. Let's do it.
Okay. So this may take a few minutes. So while looks like that one failed again.
And what is the issue here?
Should we look at the bottom?
Okay. Can you scroll up on this? Looks like I don't see any errors here. Can you scroll down further? Info, info. Can keep going. Okay, keep going. Goodbye. Yeah, but those are not errors, and it looks like embedding's fine. Okay, if this log is not showing any errors, let's close it.
Okay.
And let's open the job details. Perfect. Now let's click on that failed step.
Double click.
Yep. Permission denied. There it is. And if we click on output plus logs, we can see here at the message that we're getting a permission denied, some authentication issue. If you click on output plus logs, and perfect. This is the same.
Yeah, this looks similar to what we saw.
This looks to be the same, right?
Yeah.
Should be right. And there's a logs at the top as well. On the left side, there's system logs and just regular logs. Yeah, you see Azure ML.
Yeah.
Under logs, yep. And stdr, so standard error logs, empty. And standard output logs, do we see anything? You can click on execution as well, but I wouldn't expect anything there. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll go off of the error code at the top. Error script is going to write streams authentication.
And trying to access destinations. It's not clear what.
It's the auth. Generally, the script execution errors for write streams, those are all data access issues. So those should be related with storage. Yeah, so that's what we should check. Either way, I would expect this to fail because we did not add all of the permissions required our um, for our identities, right? So
Right. So we haven't yet finished this.
correct. And if you go back as well to the job again, to the studio, yeah, you can see on the warning the data capability. Yeah, asset upload for execution error. Yeah, so as we said previously, that script execution is generally going to be a data access issue. We can see on the warning that it is indeed data capability. It's trying to upload some data to the storage and it is failing. Okay, so what we want to do is go and review that table that we did not do last time. And yeah, let's get that set up. So with these roles, we didn't add any of these. There are managed identities on the search OAI resources that we will want to add. So let's make sure that is set up. What we want to start with, let's start with Azure OpenAI or the AI services portion. So if we can go to the Azure portal and go to Azure OpenAI. or the AI services rather.
Oops, this one's still saving, so I'll let it work on it. And so this is the AI service.
Perfect. Now, before we go here, we want to go to identity on the left side under resource management. Good. It is set up with a system assigned identity already. Now let's go to access control. If the identity is disabled on your AI services, please make sure that you do enable it, as those calls will be using that OAI managed identity. So what we want to do is go to add at the top.
Yep, let's do a quick review of it before.
Yep, those are good for the user. The user has permissions, but we want to make sure that the other identities also do. So let's add a role assignment. And let's validate with our table here. So Azure OpenAI, first we want to add OpenAI contributor to the AI search resource.
Okay, so going back into, make sure I'm in the right screen here. And we want to assign it to the search identity for the search service, right?
Yes, that would be right.
So we just did this part.
Good. And there's another one as well for Cognitive Services OpenAI user. This is mostly required if you need communication between two different OEI resources, but we'll add it here as well.
And it's required, the assignee is Azure OpenAI resource.
Since we don't have another OAI resource, we don't need to add it. But if you have one, you can. But otherwise, we don't need that permission. It would only be needed if you have two different resources, OAI resources that need to communicate with each other.
Got it. Okay. And close this one.
Yep, so that's good. Now let's go to AI search.
Yeah, so so we'll be doing this one, right? That's
Yes.
permissions 3, so we'll grab this guy here.
Yep. That one will only be needed for ingestion scenario. In this case, we won't be performing ingestion, so we would not need to add it. But in the future, if you are planning on doing some ingestion, we would make sure that the contributor role is added. Otherwise, we only need reader.
Got it. So this one's the contributor, and then contributor to the OpenAI services. Good. Looks good, right?
That is good. And the second one would be reader. So since you already get granted a contributor, you don't need to add the reader portion. For some folks that are not going to be doing ingestions or for folks that are not going to be doing ingestion, you can just add the index data reader. That would be sufficient. But in this case, we went ahead and added the contributor.
So we still
Now,
need the search service contributor.
correct. The data one is what we are referring to when we talk about the um, ingestion.
Got it. So here, um,
Yeah, we need to finalize that.
oh, okay, maybe I missed it. Okay, and add role assignments. And that one goes to the AI services as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we finished these three. We did
Perfect. And
this one.
yep.
And
And now we want to make sure that these two services, AI Search and OpenAI, have access to the storage. Okay.
mhm.
So let's navigate to the storage account. In this case, this is the
So I think there's one extra level of confirmation here. Okay, so let's navigate to storage account. And this, the one in question is the one where we have the data.
so this is should be performing the upload on the default storage account. Since you also have an additional storage account, which
Mhm.
is the one from that the documents are in, we'll have to add them to both
Both.
storages.
Okay, so let's start with the one which is in the customer's PaaS.
Mhm.
And so we'll go here.
So here, let's check your access as well. We want to make sure that you have sufficient permissions. Perfect. As you can see, we have that blob data contributor, which is what we are looking for. We will want to add that to the two identities for search and OpenAI.
Mhm. So create.
Since
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
um, yes, so we want to add the storage blob data contributor, and since these two are the same, need the same role, we can add them both simultaneously here. So we can go ahead and just add both search and OpenAI in one go. Yep, select.
Oops.
So yeah,
Okay, yeah, I have
click
to
on that
select. Yeah, got it. And then I
and then
need to.
select it. You see select at the bottom? Yeah, click on that.
Yeah, so we got both.
Perfect. hmm
So OpenAI. Okay, select.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got
So
both.
perfect. And then once that is done, it looks like the search service already had that access. That's why we saw one of the failures. So that's good. We now
We then want to
want
also go to um, the this storage account, the default storage account.
correct. Yes. Since we do data uploads to this default storage, we want to make sure that those have permissions. So same thing here. It doesn't look like you have permissions on this storage either. So we want to make sure that your user has these permissions. So storage blob, data contributor, contributor, right? And we also want to add those to the um, managed identities for search and AI services.
Got it. Yeah, so we missed that in the previous um, part. So these are the three that I need to add, right?
Those are the three. For your user, for the search and AI services, you only need the blob data contributor.
Got it. Yeah, so let me first add for my user. It's gonna go from top down here.
Yep, definitely with the additional storage account, we had a few
Extra, steps.
few extra steps. Yes, exactly, Nolly. So
Okay, so now I have the developer access that's needed to the storage account, and then we'll add these two for the search and AI.
perfect.
Quite a few permissions there, Gabe.
There were quite a few indeed. Um, yeah, but I think we should be good to go now.
Did we do this one, Gabe?
We didn't have to because we don't have two OAI models communicating with each other. So we do not have to add it.
And we did finish this one.
Yes, I believe that was the first one we added.
So I think let's go ahead and kick off the index again, and then we'll go revisit our the compute part that we were doing.
Mhm.
Okay, so here we create the new index. Third time is the charm. Doing. So looks like our index is ready, Gabe.
That is great news. Looks like all the changes we added to those permissions were successful. So let's go to chat and work with our on our data feature. Perfect. Here you'll see we have a model selected that we created earlier. We now want to go to the Azure Data tab and select the index that was just successful. So perfect, that has loaded. Notice that at the top there is an error message that popped up. It is mentioning the search index data reader, which would be needed, but because we added search index data contributor, this role is, we can ignore this. If you want to, you can click on the Fix Me button. That will add that role for you to the AI search. Otherwise, you can um, just close that and ignore it, as it will not impact your um, this chat.
This is good. Let's maybe just try the fix me. So essentially what you're saying, Gabe, is in this table, we didn't do this search index reader, right?
Correct.
So maybe we could do a quick recap of before and after on the AI search. So let me do the AI search here. And can check the permissions. So here we want to look at which permission is that search index data reader. So that would show up under.
If we go to check access and click on the check access button, and let's search for that OpenAI identity or the AI services. Click on that, and you can see we have index data contributor and search service contributor. The index data contributor here will cover reader as well. But
God, yeah. And this is new, right? This fix me. So I want to.
yes, we've been implementing some of these buttons to make it easier for users to uh, correct these permissions issues, private endpoint issues. Uh, yeah,
Nice.
make it more user friendly.
Yeah, so let's see. So now coming back over here.
Let's give it a little bit, a few minutes. But that was quick.
Yeah, that was
Worked
quick.
like a charm.
Yep, perfect. Nice. So now we are here and it looks clean. And kind of just to recap, this is the document that we are following, the one with the on the GitHub Azure samples. And so we could ask the question, just like how it says over here, does the North Wind Health Plus plan cover eye exams? And so this want to make sure that's the expected results. So did I miss anything? Plus plan cover health north wind health plus. Maybe I missed typing something. Let me try this again. Let me clear the chat.
Do we have the updated docs as well? It looks like it is checking those docs, but it seems to not be able to find that information there. We can ask something about, let's summarize the um, Northwind Health Plus plan.
Yeah, maybe I can check the code. It's been a while since I downloaded that, so that's a good call. So it would be under data.
Yeah, under data. That is the
And
one
yeah,
that
this
exists.
is last year.
Okay.
So interestingly, it doesn't.
But if we go back to chat, was
Yep,
it?
yep. We got 4 references here. So that does look like we're able to chat with the data. And I remember
Okay.
running this test. How often do employees get hearing test? How often can employee? I think that was one of the questions I would. Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. I think there are more docs than just the ones that I have uploaded. So if you see, I have maybe it was. That's an interesting point.
Does it show the reference on the?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. In this document, let's see if it shows the reference. And that we will know exactly. Yeah, I don't have this, so it makes sense.
Makes sense.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I could upload it and maybe just for completeness, if I just look at the data here, or based on what it told us over here, we could talk about dental services instead of
Eye exams. Yeah.
eye exams. But good call.
It doesn't look to
The
like. Oh, there it is. No.
what does it say here? Plan covers treatments like foot care. Maybe I could ask. So we have to know what it includes. But let's give it one more try, and if not,
Foot care.
okay, there we go. So now we got one reference, and that's the document that I have uploaded. And just to kind of remind the users that the viewers rather that I had only uploaded this to, and I think the one that we asked the first question was in this PDF. So nice, it all makes sense. Anything else we want to do in the chat playground?
I think that's good. I think that covers it. Um,
Yeah,
awesome.
I really like this summarize the plan, which shows all the documents as well. So it's like a quick way of checking what all it is referring to. Oh, this is great. So all of this working securely in the chat playground, right?
Yes, indeed. We finalized our end-to-end demo here.
Thanks, Gabe.
Thank
Awesome.
you, Nahali.
Yep. Okay, and so here, let's go back and revisit the demo that we did earlier with the index. to see what we did in the meantime was uploaded some of the missing documents. Remember when we did the demo earlier, I didn't have, let's go see exactly where those documents were. Right, we were missing the benefits document and the Perk Plus. So I went ahead and added it on my storage account. So we now have it, and I kicked off a new index here. Looks like the index is finished, Gabe.
Awesome. Let's see if we can um, ask that question again with those documents. Um, let's
So
go to
notice,
the...
yeah, so the new index, the way we labeled it is, let me just refresh it. It's labeled as updated. So it's the same index, but name, but then updated. So you want to go into the chat playground here and see.
Yes. Yeah, we might have to do a
Refresh it.
quick refresh. We can ignore that error at the top. It won't be impacting anything right now. So no issue with the validation API for the network rules. So hopefully by the time you watch this, this should already be addressed. So we can ignore it. It won't be impacting anything.
Okay.
Oh, still completing then.
Still completing, yeah. Looks
Yeah.
like it's still completing. Oh, now it looks
Okay,
ready.
now it should be good.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Yeah, awesome. So now we can run the same question. Is this something?
Same thing. This won't impact anything. We have we have a contributor role that is higher than this, so we can click on the Fix Me button and it will add it for you, but it should also not.
So I thought we added this earlier.
We added the index user, or
Interesting.
index data reader rather, on
Oh, yeah.
for OAI.
Yeah, this one, I still have it highlighted. I see. So the one that it's complaining about, oops, is the one which
OpenAI
is,
user, but we added OpenAI contributor, so that's supersedes it, right? But
yeah, so
if you click
maybe,
on the Fix Me button, that will add it, and then you don't have to look at that error message again.
yeah, so it's this one that it's complaining about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, so let's go ahead and we'll just do, because we tested that with the other one, so we'll just over here, just fix me. And all right, so let's ask the same question. I want to make sure we ask the exact same question. So I'm going to grab that from the demo. And the question was, does the North Wind Health Plus plan cover eye exams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here we expected to return the reference as that benefit document. Now that we have created the new index, did I misspell
No, I don't think
anything?
so.
Does the Northwind Health Plus plan cover eye exams? And benefit options.pdf, benefit options.pdf. just want to make sure it's, sorry, I am
Let's modify it to say
not,
vision exams.
okay, sure.
It looks like the response mentioned vision.
Plus, I think the way I worded the Health Plus plan, and this is where I Health, oh no, it does have Health Plus as separate. Okay, so let's go back. We'll try this one more time exactly the way it is, but and then we'll try the vision.
Oh,
Yep, see?
it actually did find it. Interesting.
It did find it. I wonder, yeah, maybe it had just finished, right? The indexing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was some delay. Okay, perfect. So that worked. And so coming back, is there anything else here, Gabe, that we want to show?
I don't think so. I think we covered it in our uh, previous demo. So, nothing for me. Now you can share your thoughts as well. Feel free.
No, perfect. Yeah. So just to for the completeness, kind of coming back to the drawing board here. Basically, we finished this architecture for be on your data, and we can now chat with our data using all private endpoints and managed identity um, that we looked at earlier, the table that we looked at earlier for completeness. I'll just share this. So we have finished everything that we have in this official Azure documentation and then completed all the different role-based access control and Entra ID as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nahali.
Thanks, Gabe. We'll stop the recording here and we'll come back with the next session. Thanks, everyone. So here we are in under compute, and I have provisioned a new compute to demo console access to the compute instances. So Gabe, what would be the best way to console into the compute and run some validations?
So for us to access this compute terminal, we will have to download a container onto this instance. And to do that, we will have to go to the project. And in your specific project, you can navigate to that code tab on the left side. And you'll see here, there is a button to set up the VS Code container. In this case, we want to select the compute, and this one is new compute we created. And for setting up the VS Code container, we just click on that Setup Container button. For this to work, we will have to add some outbound rules to our manage VNet, right? When we install this container, we are using, we're essentially installing VS Code and setting up a remote connection to it. So the instance will have to make calls to their VS Code's hosts so that it can correctly set up and download this. I believe Nahali pulled up the documentation as well that covers the required hosts, and you can find it here. Yes, and to add these rules, we would want to navigate to the AI Hub, and there we can go to the networking tab under our Managed Virtual Network, just like we added the private endpoints before. This time we will be adding FQDN rules. When you create this FQDN rules, we will also create a firewall on the backend to route this traffic and allow these specific hosts. Yeah, for the sake of time, we went ahead and added it before we started recording, but these should be the rules required for this to work. If you were using allow internet outbound, since traffic is not blocked at all, you would not need to add all of these additional hosts. Any other points you'd like to add here, Nahali?
Yeah, so just for clarification, Gabe, so essentially under the hood, when we click, going back over here, when we click on this setup container, we're using the remote functionality within VS Code to console in. Is that correct?
Right, we're establishing a remote connection
I see.
to VS Code using those outbound hosts.
And all of these are the different URLs that FQDNs that it would access when
Correct.
setting up the container. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that.
Perfect. It'll take a couple of minutes, and once that is completed, we should be able to launch either VS Code Desktop or VS Code Web, and there you'll be able to set up Python scripts, IPython notebooks, whatever you want, or access the terminal as well of that compute.
Yeah, so I also thought of using that compute as a kind of console as a troubleshooting mechanism to troubleshoot any a potential DNS issue. So maybe we can stage that. So in other words, if I am on the compute and I try to resolve one of our private endpoints, it would resolve as a private IP, right? So in
Correct. And
other
it would,
words, yeah, we can pick any one of them. So let's say we picked our storage account. So anything that's projected in the managed VNet, right? This managed VNet. So if I grab the endpoint and then when we are ready, we could grab this endpoint and look up that endpoint when we can console in. And kind of coming back to the diagram as well while it's provisioning, Gabe, I noticed that this private endpoint subnet always gets the 10.1.0.0, and that's the default, right? 10.2.0.0 is where the compute is provisioned, and 10.1.0.0/24 is where the private endpoints are.
right. That is correct. Good observation.
Yeah, and so when we resolve it, sitting on this compute, when we console in, when we resolve this storage account, we expect to get an IP in the 10.1.0 network.
Right. And which would differ from the IP you see if you do an NS lookup on your virtual machine, as
Right.
it will be using
It
a
would be,
different
yeah.
private endpoint.
Yeah. Good point. Maybe we run it on both. Good point. Okay, awesome. Let's go see if yeah, looks like it's ready. So we could launch it in the web mode. And while we're waiting, I'll just do an NS lookup, Gabe, like you said, from the virtual machine.
Perfect.
See, it should resolve to the IP in the customer's VNet, which it does indeed. And looks like this has finished in the background. So let's go ahead and finish
As you can
that.
see here as well, this is the VS Code ID that um, it's containerized in your instance. If you look under the Manage Project folder, we see a few folders already created. Those were mounted onto the compute from the default storage account of the workspace. That is the file share that is mounted. And so when you create a file here, those files will also be matched with the storage account file share. There's a code folder in there where we store uh, all of these Python scripts and HiPy notebooks. But yeah, now we can go navigate to the terminal and do the test as well here.
Awesome. Yeah, so it gets an IP from that 10.2 network, 10.2.0, and then if we ns lookup the storage account,
Let's do a curl command.
curl delete maybe.
Yeah, curl-v, and we can add the protocol HTTPS. But
Yeah, there it does resolve to the 10.1.0.14 IP as expected. Is there
awesome.
anything else that we could do from the console? What else can we do from here?
Uh, you are free to do anything with the console
Mm-hmm.
pretty much. You can
Mm-hmm.
do run CLI commands, run any sort of scripts you want. Yeah, this is a development machine where you can
Full
use for,
access.
yep, with full access. So
Awesome.
yeah,
So this was great. Thanks, Gabe, for showing me that.